Julie Whitney, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm excited to have you here today.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here.
So, Julie, you're wearing bright red on a bright red napkin. You shared with me a wonderful napkin. Your wisdom is it only takes one. One is in capitals and underlined. Yes, you got a little smiley face. Why
Yes.
did you share that with me?
I go way, way back with that motto. I've always embraced it. When I started my public relations consulting business back in 2000 and made a break out of the TV and advertising business, I had to find just one client that would pay me enough that I could actually break away and start a business. I couldn't just hang up a shingle and say, oh, here's my business. I hope someone hires me today. So I found that one client willing to pay me for 24 hours a week so that I could build my hourly business around that. But then it
That's amazing.
continued as
Mhm.
I was pitching stories to the national media, the Wall Street Journal and the Today Show. I knew that I just needed to get one national reporter on the hook. And my client at the time called me the lone wolf because I wasn't afraid to just pick up the phone back in the old days and call reporters until I got that one story. Once you landed that one big story, the other media would call and things would tend to fall like dominoes. So that was always my strategy in my PR career.
You
If
know,
you Go
th
ahead.
I think I have this motto. My motto, very similar to yours, is abundance starts with one, and it sort of says the same thing. That's kind of what you're saying, right? Like it just takes one because that one opens the door for whatever happens after that, doesn't it?
And yes, and persistence pays. Persistence in a nice way without being a fly in the ointment.
Mhm.
I have a quote on my website from a reporter at the Wall Street Journal who's no longer there, but she said, "You were one of the most persistent PR people I've ever worked with." And I fed her exactly what she needed. And she actually would come to me when she was on a deadline and couldn't find someone for her small business column and relied on me to help her find people. So if you're persistent in a nice way, um, it does pay. And this it only takes one motto of mine. It follows the book business that I'm now in. If you want to go into that
Yeah,
as well.
we're definitely gonna. Well, let's just jump right in. So, you went from PR business
Mhm.
and then you took a right turn
I did.
into becoming an author. How did that happen?
So I'm not giving up the day job yet because I have to support the author habit and all my endeavors with that. As every celebrity on the planet, Jimmy Kimmel, Drew Barrymore, everyone has a kid's book. It's a tough market, but 2020 was a tumultuous year worldwide. I think we can all agree.
Hmm.
My husband, who is a former Navy pilot, was flying a beautiful corporate Gulfstream jet for 13 years. And due to the pandemic, unexpectedly on May 5th, 2020, he got a call in the afternoon and said, "We are selling the plane, closing the flight department, and you are out of a job." So, as a good wife, I went with him to clean out the hangar and say goodbye to the beautiful plane. And I asked him if I could sit inside her, and he let me sit inside her. And he lit up the instrument panel, and I still cry when I tell the story. I unexpectedly started just weeping because he was so close to this plane. She was his baby. He was the chief pilot. He knew her quirks, her ins, her outs, all her nuances. He flew her 3 to 4 days a week as far away as Brazil. I mean, that was his baby. It really was. And so I got really sad and I said, "What's going to happen to her sitting all alone in this hangar? She's used to flying 3 or 4 days a week." He said, "Well, Julie, if someone doesn't start up her engines every 28 days, she's not going to be in very good shape." So I went home that night and I started writing, and I wrote a book called Astra the Lonely Airplane. And the plane originally was called the Astra SPX, and she was built in Israel. That's why the name Astra, which worked out perfectly. And I've always been good at rhyming, so I wrote it in rhyming verse. And I'd say in a couple weeks I had a pretty good manuscript. And then I started pitching publishers to see if I could get someone to publish my book. I didn't want to have to self-publish it. So my motto was, it only takes one. It only takes one. Yes, I got to get a publisher. And I didn't know a lot about publishing. I promoted many authors throughout my career, but as far as becoming one, boy, I didn't realize everything that's involved. I got a yes in August of 2020 on National Aviation Day, if that's not the
That's great.
stars being aligned. And that's the day Captain Dan found a new job. So the book was meant to be. I got my one yes. And the second book just came out last March. And that was called Astra in Hollywood. Astra finds herself in her new Hollywood hangar, surrounded by three new friends: Lana the Learjet, Helen the helicopter, and Hank the cargo plane. They can all do things that Astra cannot, and she feels inferior, wondering if she'll fit in. But in the end, she helps all of her friends in her own clever, speedy way, and they all become best friends. So
Amazing.
that's the first two books.
That's great.
And
And
it's nothing, I never intended to do it. It just happened. I mean, it just happened. And going to schools, I partner with Junior Achievement, and reading to assemblies with like 600 kids and doing a PowerPoint on planes and flying is the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Does it make you any money? No. But does it give you tons of satisfaction? Yes.
so let's loop back on a couple things that you shared,
Yeah,
because I think it's really interesting that the way you helped clients, really, that persistence, that finding one, is the way you helped yourself, right? Like you used all those skills. The same, you said you didn't know anything about publishing, but you sure knew a lot about promotion, and
I
you
did.
brought that persistence into what you did for yourself. Um, did you find it harder to do it for yourself than doing it for someone else? Did you find it harder to promote yourself than, because that's a different thing, right?
Not really, because I know all the locally, I know everyone. So I literally just had to tell
Mhm.
people that I had a book and set up book signings, and they would have me on their shows. I didn't really find, because I've been doing it so long. I've been doing PR almost 40 years. So I didn't really find it that difficult doing it for myself. What the harder part was not necessarily securing the media coverage, but getting my books into non-traditional places. So bookstores are fine, but that's not really how I've been selling books. I contacted every aviation museum in the entire country, and I'm in most of the aviation museums from coast to coast. I got myself in 37 of Hudson Booksellers' major airports in all their stores. And this has just been me hounding people, calling, calling, calling. There's no list, finding out who. And I love it when people send me pictures like, I'm in the Detroit airport. I saw your book. Oh, I'm at Book Soup in LA. I saw your book. I'm at the Seattle Aviation Museum. I saw your book. And I post those photos, and I love it. So that's been challenging because my publisher is small, and they don't really have, they have like 12 people. They don't have the staff to do any kind of PR or marketing. Yes, you're in the standard catalogs, which, the bookstores can order from, but I've really thought outside of the box and gone to unusual places in order to sell books.
So I love what you just did. Your instinct was to find non-traditional channels to move your book, and you looked for parallel channels that would be very interesting, like aviation museums, airports, of course, and other things. So this out of the box thinking, and I love that you married it with, you said this, it was back in the day, and I was gonna come back to this. You said you picked up the phone and called people
Yeah,
back in the day, but you're doing that today. You're not sending emails
you're
alone. You're
right.
you're
You're
making
right.
phone calls, right?
I have to. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
so
the times in PR have changed. When I first started out, I had a contact at ABC News, at NBC News, at CBS News, at the Wall Street Journal, at the New York Times. One contact that I would go to at the bureau that would get me on the shows, they've all retired. So I can't pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I got a great story for GMA. Can you?" It just doesn't work like that. It's all 23-year-old producers. They don't know me. So
yeah.
it's different. It's different now. The relationship building, as far as the national media, is a bit more challenging. But yeah, I do know a lot of the aviation museums and people there now.
Yeah. And so I love how diligent you were about finding these numbers, being persistent, getting through. Let's talk about that difference, right? So back back in the day, when you called people, they answered their phones, and I remember the ratio. We used to talk about ratios back in. We'd always say, "Hey guys, every 9 phone calls, you're going to get one conversation. So it's just about getting to 10. Just get to 10. And if you go over 10, know you're going to go two for the next 10. It's okay. It's just numbers."
Yep.
And so that was the way we did it, but that's not the same number ratio anymore, right? Nobody answers their phone
No.
anymore. So how do you stay energized? Because you've got a lot of energy, a lot of positive, wonderful, dynamic energy. How do you bring that energy? What's your routine as you're going through yet another phone call where you're expecting voicemails? Because it's now somewhere around 30 to 1. So when you're going 30 phone calls, 30 dials before talking to somebody, what's the approach? Tell me about that.
Persistent still. I follow up. I have my spreadsheet with notes of who I called at which airport. Follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. I mean, I've had to take 3 phone calls. Sometimes if I get lucky and get an email, 3 emails. I just keep following up in a persistent way, try not to be annoying, say, sorry to bother you again, but I want to make sure you got my voicemail about this incredible children's book that's teaching them about aviation and flying. And it's still persistence. I have a funny story when you said about the days of picking up the phone. The best story I have, I got Dawn Hewitt from 60 Minutes on the phone.
No way.
My strategy, I've always worked at home. After my son was off at school, I would call early in the morning, thinking that sometimes if you call like 7:30 or something in the newsroom, you could actually get a live person. Dawn Hewitt here. I'm like, what do I do? And I mean, he's like a legend. And so God rest his soul. Um, I gave him my pitch. He's like, fax it to me. That was back in the days of fax machines. And I got to know his secretary. Her name was Beverly, I think. And the story didn't end up happening, but he's like, I'm walking this down to Morley Safer's office right now. And that's like how things were at the time.
Dawn Hewitt, Morley Safer. That's
But
great.
I mean, people don't even know who they are. They're listening to this. Sorry, um, but yeah, those days are gone.
I remember sitting on the carpet in my parents, in the parents' living room, watching 60 Minutes and all of these legends
Yep,
talking through things. So it put a smile on my face for sure.
good.
So but I get that you're doing the persistence, but I think you're being a little too humble about the system that you're using because you talked about a spreadsheet, taking notes, follow-ups. There's a lot of sophistication there, and you're being a little shy about the fact that there's a lot of thought that goes into your system.
Well,
So I know you've developed it over time because it obviously 40 years in the business, now doing it for yourself. What makes you when you say persistence, but in a nice way, what does that look like? Can you give me an example of that?
showing the benefits to them. In other words, when I follow up, I say, did you know that there's educational activity sheets on my page that you can download for free for kids when they're in your shop? Um, I try to stress the fact that the first book also comes with a free video that kids can watch as a bonus. I put a QR code in the back of the first book. So I tell them about all the extras. Um, this is a QR code, and when they scan it, I did a three-minute video. Captain Dan was a trooper. He went into the hangar and we taped him giving kids a tour of the inside and outside of Astra. Oh, he's in his pilot uniform. It's really cute. And a 2-page glossary. So I kind of remind them of all the extras. I do tell them that they can order 40% off if they want to order directly through my publisher at wholesale pricing. And then I personally send them free Astra bookmarks for all their customers just out of my own pocket. I have these two-sided Astra bookmarks for their stores. So, and if you order, I'll also send you the free bookmarks and I just mail those. So there's other little tidbits that I can follow up. Oh, I forgot to tell you about this. Did you know about this? I do emphasize that pilots are buying like crazy for their kids and grandkids. Pilots love this book. I even ended up in the AOPA Pilots magazine. They reviewed it, both books. So that's been a great audience for me. But in terms of the follow-ups, I kind of build on all the extras about the free activity sheets and etc.
Yeah, I think is so what you're doing is not just following up, hey, did you? It's like a did you know? And here's some more value. So
Yeah.
so I think that's very instinctual to you because you've done it for 40 years. But people who are listening, I mean, for if you're listening to this and you're thinking about what does it mean to get the one yes, it's always coming at it with a different angle of value because what you see as value in one direction may not be heard even by the other person. And you're one person selling your thing or sharing your value to them, but they're filtering hundreds and hundreds of things. They may not
Yeah.
remember what you said unless you say it in a slightly different way and add a slightly different emphasis to it, right?
And yes, and there's one more thing I forgot to tell you. So LinkedIn, then I follow up on LinkedIn, which has been a great tool. For example, Hudson Booksellers, I met the actual book buyer on LinkedIn and messaged her saying, hey, I've got this great book that I think will be perfect for your airport stores. So LinkedIn is another great way, like a different channel. Or you can follow up on LinkedIn and say, hey, did you get my email? I'm just checking, or do I have the right email? And you can send them a message. So
Mhm.
I find that that's another great tool. And that's really helped me when we get to talking about my animated series that I'm working on now. LinkedIn has been a tremendous tool in finding the contacts for that.
Yeah. So, well, let's just jump right in. Now you went from, hey, look, and I think the story was when the pandemic hit,
Uh-huh.
you were essentially, thinking about taking a trip to Italy, uh,
Oh
and
yeah. My
and
60th birthday was a great
yeah,
year.
yeah, your big 60, which you left nowhere and did nothing. But instead of going to Italy, you had this book written, you
Yeah.
had it published, you did this, you were inspired, you know, this door closed, and really like this hangar door closed
Yeah,
on
it did.
Astra, and
Yep.
then all of a sudden these other things opened up, right?
Lemons to lemonade, lemons to lemonade.
Yeah, so all of this is happening. So you pivot into a author, a children's
Uh-huh.
book author. You promote it the way you promoted your clients and got it leveraged. You wrote a second book, and now you're turning this into an animated series, right?
Yep. So I wrote the third book, which is kind of on hold. It's called Astra's Canine Rescue. I wrote it a couple years ago. Astra actually takes dogs that are abandoned due to the California wildfires and flies them to their new homes with new purposes all over the country. It's a really cool book. But I couldn't stop writing, and I had so many episodes in my brain or books in my brain, I guess I should say, so many plots with her and her three new friends and what they could do together to help people and animals on our planet that I thought, you know what? I can't possibly publish 22 books because it takes a long time. It's a process with the illustrations and the edits and the back and forth. So I just said, you know what? This is a streaming TV series. This is a really cool series about three friends that are dramatically different and each have their distinct personalities and skill sets that work together as a team to help others. It's just a general message that's universal to everyone. So, I wrote a TV treatment for over 22 episodes and just to get started. And I thought, I really need a visual to go with this. So, I actually hired a freelancer on Fiverr. I don't know if you're familiar with Fiverr.
Hmm.
And he's in India and he's wonderful and he speaks English. And I wrote the script. I voiced the script myself to save money. And I wrote a jingle, an open. He used AI to put it to music. I have a 2 minute and 40-second wonderful, wonderful, wonderful trailer for Astra and Friends. And to test it, my granddaughter, who lives in Nashville, who's 3.5, watched it on my phone 30 times, cried when we took it away. She wanted more, more, more. I'm like, I don't have any more. But I am producing a second one right now. So my motto with the animated streaming series is It only takes one production, animation company, and distribution company, whatever you want to call it, to say yes. It only takes one. So I've started sending a Dropbox link to, I did a pitch deck and the trailer, and I've been sending it to companies, animation companies in the US, Canada, all over Europe. And 3 in Canada have already gotten back to me and have me sign agreements that it's okay for them to look at this material and verifying that I do own it. And I've been working with an intellectual property attorney, which costs you an arm and a leg, to make sure I'm in the clear on doing all this, getting everything squared away. It's a learning process. Um, so I have 3 companies that have expressed interest in Canada. And then I had another yes yesterday from a company in the States. So we're going to do a Zoom call tomorrow.
That's
So
great.
I really, really want to leave a legacy in this world. I want to leave something good behind for kids that has a good message about helping others.
I think what's really, I mean, there's so much about your story that I find so compelling, and I want to, I don't want to lose these things, but you talked about how a 40-year PR career ended. y- You know, you thought you're going off on your 60th birthday to Italy. Pandemic happens. When you're sitting in your husband's Gulfstream, which you affectionately named Astra, and he named Astra, I assume, as well. Uh, there was there was this moment where you felt inspired and you wrote a book. You weren't an author before that, were you?
No, I've
So
promoted so many authors, but no.
you're starting this brand new career that you knew something about the promotion side because of your past, but you'd never done yourself. And then you're going through the whole production cycle, the publishing cycle, the whole editing and obviously printing cycle. You're doing all of those things, selling it to non-traditional markets. Then again, all of this started at 60. So I think that what the thing that I'm inspired by, and I don't want to lose, is that you had this huge pivot opportunity, and like I hope that people can hear just how enthusiastic you are about it. It's
Oh.
like you were built for this, but 20 years ago, I don't think you even saw this coming, did you?
No, it was never on my bucket list ever. And I didn't realize how much work it is. I mean, it takes, so when I signed with my publisher in August of 2020, the book came out on Dr. Seuss's birthday, Read Across America Week, March 2nd, 2022, and the second book came out in 20. So it takes like 18 months to go back and forth with the edits. And then I had to find an illustrator, and they gave me a portfolio, and I sent them real photos from the day of the photo shoot so they could see what my husband, Captain Dan, and the plane looked like, to see who could capture what I saw in my brain. And Michelle Simpson, who's from Canada,
Mhm.
nailed it. I saw her sketches and I literally started crying. I'm like, oh my
Mm.
gosh, this is Astra. This is her personality. This is Captain Dan. This is exactly how I envision it. She just nailed it. She's amazing. Anyway, then you have to go back and forth on the tweaks to the illustrations. I think Captain Dan needs to be more this way. Astra needs to look happier. Astra needs to look sad. Round and round and round, and then you get your advance copy 6 months before the book is released, because you really need to start promoting it 6 months prior to the release date. Book
Mhm.
reviewers like to have it 6 months in advance. Booksellers need to know ahead of time if they're going to order it and set up signings. So it is a process. I never realized, you'd think a picture book is easy. It's just a picture book. I think it's probably more difficult than a novel, actually. There's more involved.
Yeah, well, there's more people involved anyway, because a
Yep.
novel, you're the one writing it and editing
Yep.
it, and of course you hire people to support you, but you do all those other things. The other thing that I find really interesting is that you talk about back in the day using the phone, but you're using the phone, you're using email. I don't think you're using fax anymore, but you're using the phone and email.
I have
But
one
but
client that's 82 in Vero Beach, Florida, and he keeps asking me to fax. I finally got rid of it. I'm hoping he's not going to call me because,
yeah,
anyway.
but then you've got like LinkedIn and Fiverr as tools that you're using as well, right? But
Yep.
it doesn't matter what tool you're using, it feels like you still go into that tool to reinforce value and relationship. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're correct. You're exactly correct. And I've trained myself to be an expert in social media. So I have clients now that I just manage their Instagram and Facebook accounts or, do their posts. So I've learned to become, a social media PR pro as well, which was a big adaptation.
Yeah.
And I set up a separate Instagram account just for the book so that people don't need to see like what salad I ate that night or, and have a specific book site
Yeah.
that I use. And I started on TikTok and it's been pretty interesting. So I'm trying to use TikTok too.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to do whatever it takes.
Yeah. Well, but I think that one of the things that you do so well is that you bring yourself, like authentically yourself, to everything you do, and I think that's powerful and and engaging. So let me ask you, a lot of people, especially let's say 45 plus. A lot of people say, Instagram's tough for me, TikTok's tough for me. I find these social media, these new technology tools a little bit tougher. What would you say has really empowered you in your leverage of them? Because Astra's everywhere almost. I mean, you've done a wonderful job communicating Astra. So how have you really embraced the differences between those technologies, especially coming into them maybe not as the
Mm.
native generation.
Yeah, I try to make the posts on LinkedIn are more about like um hey, if you're passing through LAX, look for my book. They're more like travel, professional related than the ones on Instagram might be Happy National Children's Book Week or Happy Librarians Week. So I kind of have a different tone. It's kind of bothering me that people are putting like recipes on LinkedIn. It's not what it's for. I
Mhm.
mean, LinkedIn's kind of becoming Facebooky. I mean, I don't know if
Yeah,
you feel that way, but people are putting like pictures of their dogs on there. I love my dog, but I'm trying to use it as a professional networking tool. And I posted a screenshot on there of the opening scene from Astor and Friends saying, I have 3 companies interested. If you want to see the trailer, please message me. Um, so those posts are a little bit different. Instagram, I even post pictures of like reading in schools and things like that. I posted a photo of me in my pilot uniform talking about it's a great way to host a kid's birthday party. I actually had someone that wanted a pilot themed birthday party for their kid and they ordered 20 copies of the book directly from me. And I said, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to go ahead and share it. Easy way to have a kid's birthday party. You buy a cheap pair of aviator sunglasses and you give them a pair of plastic wings and the book, and that's their present for going to the party, the pilot
yeah,
theme party. So,
that's great.
something I'd like to break into is the party stores. And I didn't have any luck. I tried to find the right people at Party Source. I think they're going under, I read anyway. But I thought, wow, if this could be in a party store
Again,
next to the
yeah.
pilot uniform. But
I love how you follow your curiosity to non-traditional markets. So, I mean, there was a lot of takeaway here, and you've provided a lot of wisdom and value to our audience. Thank you. As you, as you and I talked about, what you appreciate appreciates. We end every episode putting back some appreciation in the world. It was a paper napkin we got some years ago from a great friend of the show, John Rulin, and and so now, in honor of John and his family, we ask our guests, uh, is there anybody you'd like to shout out? Anybody you'd like to give some appreciation to before we close?
I have to shout out the Captain Dan. He's my rock. He doesn't like being on camera. He did a 3-minute video for me. When he's available, he comes to schools and the kids are thrilled and they ask him a million questions. Because if they ask me what makes a plane fly, I'm like, it's magic, kids. I mean, he has been a real trooper because he's got his day job and he's very busy, but yeah, he did my Astra website. He built it for me. He's my webmaster. He has just been so supportive. He protests like he doesn't like going to the schools, but they'll say, does anyone have any questions for the author, kids? Does anyone have any questions for the pilot? Where does the pilot go to the bathroom? How does he go? Can he eat in the cockpit? Are I just do you need a key to start the plane? I mean, the crazy questions they get. So, I mean, I couldn't have done this without him. If he hadn't lost his job, I would have never written this book. I mean, I wasn't going to write a book about an airplane. I mean, you know, it was meant to be, and I owe him a lot. He's been a real trooper. In any questions that I have about planes, or he's on a G100 Facebook page, and I said, "Will you please post about the book on there?" And he did finally. Um, it's him.
That's great. That's great. Well, thanks for joining me, Julie. It's great to meet you.
Thank you for having me.